elections on 3rd August. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Brendan Lepol and you're watching Updates at Noon. Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim is set to launch Madani Economy, Empowering the People, which will steer the economy to safeguard the country's future. The launch will be held at the Securities Commission's headquarters in Putrajaya tomorrow. The announcement was made by the Prime Minister in a Facebook post. Malaysia's economy recorded better than expected growth of 5.6% in the first quarter of 2023, driven mainly by private sector spending. Previously, Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM) Governor Dato Abdul Rashid Ghaffur said the central bank has maintained its projection for the country's gross domestic product (GDP) growth this year between 4% and 5%. He said that domestic demand remains resilient and the job market is improving, further supporting consumer spending. On 24th February, Dato Sri Anwar, who is also the Finance Minister, presented the Unity Government's first budget with an allocation of 388.1 billion ringgit, an increase from the 372.3 billion ringgit budget presented in October 2022. A total of 289.1 billion ringgit was allocated for operating expenditure and 99 billion ringgit for development expenditure, including a contingency reserve of 2 billion ringgit. The Election Commission (EC) will hold a special meeting on 3rd August to discuss matters relating to the by-elections for the Julai Parliamentary and Simpang Jeram state seats in Johor. EC Secretary Dato Ikmaluddin Ishak in a statement said the special meeting is to set the important dates for the by-elections. Elaborating, he said, this includes the dates for the issuance of the election writ, nomination, early voting and polling, as well as electoral roll to be used and other preparations. The special meeting will be chaired by EC Chairman Tan Sri Abdul Ghani Saleh. A press conference will be held after the meeting. Dato Ikmaluddin said the EC had received an official notification from Dewan Rakyat Speaker Tan Sri Johari Abdul yesterday regarding the vacancy for the Julai parliamentary seat. An official notification was also received on the Simpang Jeram state seat vacancy from Johor State Assembly Speaker Dato Dr. Muhammad Fuad Zakarshi on the same day. In accordance with Article 54, Subsection 1 of the Federal Constitution and Article 23, Subsection 5 of the Johor State Constitution 1895, the Julai Parliamentary and Simpang Jeram state seats must be filled within 60 days from the date the seat fell vacant. A sinkhole at kilometre 66.1 of the Kuala Lumpur-Kara Expressway, which affected both directions near Bentong, has resulted in a road closure. East Coast Expressway (LBT), in a post on its Facebook page, requested that motorists from Kuantan to Kuala Lumpur to exit at the East Bentong intersection and re-enter at the West Bentong intersection. Several photos circulated on social media showed the road surface has a large sinkhole due to soil settlement on the Kuala Lumpur-Kara Highway. Meanwhile, Works Minister Dato Sri Alexander Nantalinggi, in a post on his Facebook last night, said that he had instructed all agencies and the concession company involved to take immediate action to ensure the safety of road users. He said the current status of all eastbound and westbound lanes are closed and users heading towards Kuantan or Kara are advised to exit at the West Bentong Junction and re-enter the highway at the East Bentong Junction. The minister has also instructed relevant departments and agencies involved to update him on the incident from time to time. The Cabinet has agreed in principle to review the Sedition Act 1948, Act 15, to ensure the law is only used to protect the royalty from any provocations. According to Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Law and Institutional Reform, Dato Sri Azalina Othman Said, she had tabled in the Cabinet the findings of the 3R legal dialogue held on 21st July in combating provocative issues involving religion, race and royalty, the 3Rs. In a statement, she said other aspects on provocations involving religion and race will also be studied. This will include formulating new laws if necessary on the country's harmony and unity by taking into consideration the views of rulers as the head of Islam, as well as the best international practice and principles. She said the Legal Affairs Division will take appropriate steps in reviewing in detail the Sedition Act 1948, Act 15. The minister added that this is to ensure that the proposed amendment that will be proposed is really intended to protect the institution of rulers holistically. Coming up next on the foreign front, Ecuador's prison violence recorded at least 31 deaths. Stay tuned. Ecuador's Attorney General raised the death toll from a wave of violence over the weekend in one of the country's most dangerous jails to 31 late on Tuesday, after the government earlier declared a 60-day state of emergency for the country's prisons. The government in a statement said the emergency declaration seemed to set off violence in the city of Esmeraldas, where 15 prison guards and 2 other staffers were being held hostage at a local jail. In Guayaquil, at least 2,700 heavily equipped soldiers and police officers entered the Penitenciaria del Litoral prison after the enactment of the 60-day measure, regaining control of 3 cell blocks with controlled detonations. Clashes between gangs began on Saturday at the prison, one of the most dangerous in Ecuador. The prosecutor's office raised the death toll to 31 from 18 in a post on social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. It also raised the number of injured to 14, with some 120 prison officers had been freed after being held hostage in 6 jails around the country. Mexican security forces were complicit in the 2014 abduction of 43 student teachers and concealed documents which showed where some of them were taken. Independent experts investigating the disappearance said that the state was responsible for the concealment of vital information, making it impossible to continue their work. The commission, created in 2014 under an agreement between Mexico and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, released the 6th and final report on one of the country's worst human rights atrocities. The interdisciplinary group of independent experts, GIEI, tasked with investigating the case, said in their findings that the Army, Navy, police and intelligence agencies knew minute by minute where the students were. The 43 youths were part of a larger group of students from the Ayotzinapa Rural Teachers College that came under attack in the city of Iguala, Guerrero on 26 September 2014. Some of their group died at the scene or escaped, and the remains of only 3 of the 43 have been formally identified. In its initial findings, the previous government concluded the 43 had been kidnapped by corrupt police in cahoots with a local drug gang who believed the students had been infiltrated by members of a rival outfit. The gang then killed the students and burned their bodies. The GIEI and the current government says that account was riddled with errors and that officials hid information. A Brussels court convicted 6 men of murder and 2 others of terrorism charges after the country's largest ever trial into the 2016 terrorist bombings in the Belgian capital that killed 32 people. The 6 of 10 facing charges were found guilty of murder and attempted murder in a terrorist context for their part in the twin bombings at Brussels Airport and 3rd bomb on the city's metro on 22nd March 2016. They and 2 others were also convicted of participating in the activities of a terrorism organization. 2 men were acquitted. The trial will hold separate hearings to determine sentences in September. Those found guilty of murder face potential life sentences. Among those convicted was Salah Abdeslam, the main suspect in the trial into the Paris attacks that killed 130 people. Abdeslam had fled to Brussels after taking part in the Paris attacks and holed up for 4 months in an apartment hosting members of the local cell. He was arrested several days before the Brussels attacks took place. The suicide attacks on 22nd March 2016 at Brussels main airport and on the metro system were claimed by the Daesh group. Russian President Vladimir Putin will discuss the Ukraine issue with leaders of African countries who will gather for a Russia-Africa summit hosted in St. Petersburg later this week. In a statement, the Kremlin said Russia appreciates the sincere efforts of the African partners for a political resolution of the conflict. Several African leaders, including South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, are expected at the summit set for Thursday and Friday in Putin's native city. The Kremlin said that 49 African countries have confirmed their participation. The Kremlin added that at the end of the summit, a declaration will be adopted outlining the coordinated approaches to the development of Russian-African cooperation. The end of a deal that has allowed Ukrainian grain exports through the Black Sea to global markets, including Africa, is set to dominate the agenda. In the last few days, Moscow has sought to reassure African partners, saying it understands the concern on the issue. At the summit's plenary session, Putin is expected to make a big statement that will address the issue of food and fertilizers. The summit is the second of its kind after an inaugural one that was held in 2019 in Sochi, in southern Russia. The United Nations said on Tuesday it had begun transferring 1 million barrels of oil from a rusting super tanker of war-torn Yemen in a bid to avert a catastrophic spill. The transfer of 1.14 million barrels of Marib light crude from the 47-year-old FSO Safer to the new vessel is expected to take less than 3 weeks. The aging vessel, with its corroding hull, is carrying 4 times as much oil as was spilled in the 1989 Exxon Valdez disaster of Alaska.
As we speak to you today, we are very relieved at this moment that the operation of pumping the oil has finally begun. But let us also be clear, this is just another step in this highly complex operation that ultimately will lead to the emptying of the tanks, then the cleaning of the tanks, then the towing away and the sound and ecologically and socially responsible scrapping of the FSO Safa, and the delivery of a calm buoy. All of these are part of this Operation FSO Safa.
Experts say success is far from certain, as scorching summer temperatures, aging pipes and sea mines lurking in surrounding waters all pose potential threats to the operation. The UN hopes the $143 million operation will eliminate the risks of an environmental disaster that it estimates would cost $20 billion to clean up. Total Energies announced it had started drilling wells for oil in Uganda as part of a huge project condemned by environmental and rights groups. The French oil major and the China National Offshore Oil Corporation signed a $10 billion agreement last year to develop Ugandan oil fields and ship the crude via a 1,445-kilometer pipeline to Tanzania's Indian Ocean port of Tanga. Total Energies said drilling began in July to start production in 2025. In Kampala, however, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, PAU, said the drilling of development wells began on 28 June. In a statement, PAU said over 400 wells are expected to be drilled to produce about 190,000 barrels of oil per day at peak when production starts in 2025. PAU's Director of Development and Production, Alex Nyombi, said 3 rigs have been lined up for drilling operations. He said the rigs in Uganda are designed to minimize the environmental footprint by adding sustainable technologies and practices and ensuring responsible resource extraction for future generations. However, environmentalist groups said the drilling was underway in the very heart of the Murchison Falls National Park, Uganda's oldest and biggest protected natural space. They said the project will have dire consequences for local communities and the environment. The company said it it had offered fair compensation and would continue to pay close attention to respecting the rights of the communities concerned. Eager scientists and a gleaming lab awaits a sample from the asteroid Bennu, which could be key to understanding the formation of the solar system and our own planet. It is said to be analyzed at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston after it reaches Earth in late September. The precious cargo is currently aboard OSIRIS-REx, a U.S. space probe launched in 2016 to Bennu, which orbits the Sun at an average distance of about 168 million kilometers.
So we don't expect there to be anything living, but the building blocks of life, and that's really what motivated the collection of this, going to this type of asteroid, is to understand what the precursors were that may have fostered life in our solar system and on Earth.
Scientists will separate pieces of the rock and dust for study now, while carefully storing away the rest for future generations, equipped with better technology. A practice first started during the Apollo missions to the Moon. The spacecraft is scheduled to land in the Utah desert on 24 September, carrying an estimated 8.8 ounces or 250 grams of material, just over a cupful. Google parent Alphabet's second quarter profit exceeded Wall Street expectations on Tuesday, helped by steady demand for its cloud services and a rebound in advertising, sending shares higher by 4% in extended trading. Advertisers who make up a big share of Alphabet's revenue have pulled back spending precious dollars on untested advertising platforms, helping the Google parent and Facebook owner Meta Platforms. Google Cloud, which is among the biggest cloud service providers, is expected to benefit from growth driven by strong adoption of artificial intelligence tools. The company reported a profit of $1.44 per share for the April to June period, compared with estimates of $1.34 per share. Revenue for the quarter stood at $74.6 billion USD, compared with estimates of $72.82 billion USD. And in sports, Bolden header stuns Women's World Cup co-hosts. That and more in our sports segment. Stay tuned.
Perlawanan bola sepak Liga Super 2023. Pertembungan sengit terus menggegar aksi perlawanan dalam memburu tahta kejuaraan. Sabtu 29 Julai, Johor Darul Takzim bertemu Selangor FC 8.30 malam di saluran OK dan saluran Sukan RTM. Saksikan juga secara pensterima langsung di RTM Klik.
The National Sports Council, MSN, and the Malaysia Swimming Federation have agreed to appoint new technical director, high performance manager, and head coach soon, following the underwhelming performance of the national diving squad recently. According to MSN's Director of Athletes Department, Jeffrey Nagadirin, the body has listed several candidates to fill in the positions, including those from abroad. He added the technical director will play the role to monitor every program under the body. Meanwhile, the high performance manager will focus on athletes' development, while the head coach will train the elite squad. The national diving squad in the 2023 World Aquatic Championship in Fukuoka, Japan, recently was considered as underwhelming. The Honorary Secretary of the National Swimming Federation, Andy Lau, said the body will hold a post-mortem soon to determine reasons behind the poor performance in Fukuoka. Moving on to women's football, forward Sarina Bolden headed the winner as the Philippines spoiled co-hosts New Zealand's party with a stunning 1-0 victory in their Women's World Cup Group A clash on Tuesday. The Philippines lost 2-0 to Switzerland in their opening match and looks to be an easy mark for the football ferns, who were coming off their first ever World Cup win over former champions Norway and looking to book a spot in the last 16. Instead, the Philippines secured their own first World Cup win to keep alive their hopes of progressing in their debut tournament. The Philippines closed out their Group A campaign against 1995 winners Norway on Sunday, while New Zealand faced Switzerland.
There's no doubt throughout the match, if it's a boxing match, they were the better team. But, we earned that win through all those, other qualities that make this team special.
And in transfer news, winger Wilfried Zaha has joined Galatasaray on a 3-year deal following the expiration of his Crystal Palace contract. The Ivory Coast international began his career at Palace and made more than 450 appearances for the club, netting 90 goals. Galatasaray said in a statement on the club website that Zaha would be paid a signing fee of €2.33 million and would earn €4.35 million a season. The 30-year-old came through a Palace academy and spent most of his career at the London club, apart from a 2-year spell at Manchester United. Lazio, Fenerbahce and Al Nassr were reported to have been interested in signing him. Galatasaray won a record 23 league title in May, their first since 2018-19 season, and will enter the Champions League in the second qualifying round.
Obviously, this will be my first opportunity to be part of Champions League. So my mindset is to come here, do my best, try and help the club win titles and get as far as possible.
Still in football, Joe Lewis, the British billionaire and owner of the Tottenham Hotspur football team, has been criminally charged in New York for orchestrating a brazen insider trading scheme. Prosecutors said Lewis exploited his access to corporate boardrooms by passing tips about companies in which he invested to friends, personal assistants, private pilots and romantic partners, enabling them to reap millions of dollars of profit. Lewis, 86, who founded the investment firm Tavistock Group, was charged with 16 counts of securities fraud and 3 counts of conspiracy for alleged crimes spanning from 2013 to 2021. Tavistock and a spokeswoman did not immediately respond to requests for comment outside business hours. The Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic torch was unveiled on Tuesday. Creator Mathieu Lehano said the design aims to imitate the reflection of the Eiffel Tower on the ruffled surface of the Seine River and convey a peaceful energy. Made with a lightweight polished steel, the rounded torch is symmetrical from top to bottom and through 360 degrees. The lower half features a wave relief pattern that represents the water of the Seine, along which the opening ceremony will be held before more than 500,000 spectators. Lehano said he hoped the torch conveyed peace, equality, and a striking representation of the Games Paris 2024 hope to deliver. The torch will be lit at Greece's ancient Olympia, the birthplace of the Games, on 16 April 2024, marking the countdown to the Games in the French capital that begin on 26 July. It will arrive in the Mediterranean port city of Marseille on 8 May 2024 and pass through cities and sites including Strasbourg, the Panthéon in Paris, and the Mont Saint-Michel before a relay in some of France's overseas territories. Paris 2024 chief Tony Estanguet said only 2,000 torches will be produced for the Games, a drop from around 12,000 in previous editions, in order to reduce the carbon footprint. Moving on to athletics, world high jump king and international idol Javier Sotomayor is now celebrating the third decade of his still unmatched world record-breaking 2.45-meter leap over the jump bar in Salamanca, Spain. Alongside his previous 2.43-meter world record in Budapest 5 years earlier, it means the 55-year-old has been the man to beat for 35 years and counting. In his glory days, Sotomayor competed against Sweden's Patrik Håberg, former world record holder with 2.42, Kazakhstan's Igor Paklin with 2.41 meters, and American Charles Austin with 2.40 meters. The younger athletes have nevertheless threatened his crown. Qatar's Mutaz Ezabarshin with a 2.43-meter leap in Brussels, and Ukraine's Bogdan Bondarenko, who jumped 2.42 meters in New York, both in 2014, nearly a decade ago. Today's Secretary of Cuba's Athletics Federation, Sotomayor, also advises his son, Javier, who leaped 1.99 meters in Spain, age 15. He also organizes an annual children's high jumping event in honor of their late coach, Jose Godoy.
Esports and gaming, then be sure to stay tuned to RTM because something new is coming.
And with that, we've reached the end of today's update at noon. Wrapping up with a reminder of our leading story, PM sets to steer economy to safeguard country's future. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM for more. Now, before you go, or we go, let's watch a clip of an Olympic torch unveiled at Sand River 1 year before the Games opening. Till then, I'm Brenda Lepol, Malaysia Madani, cakap perpaduan, penuhi